Round 11 of the 2024 F1 season brings us to Austria and the Red Bull Ring. As the home of Red Bull, the circuit has become famous for its fanatical Max Verstappen fans and the flooding of orange smoke from their flares. Sadly, last season it gained some notoriety for the ridiculous number of track limit violations, which made a mockery of qualifying and caused a stupid number of time penalties to be dished out after the race for infringements. That and more is going to be changing at the Austrian Grand Prix this year, which is expected to be a very different affair from last year. And today, I'm going to check it all out, so don't go anywhere. The Austrian Grand Prix was one of the most entertaining races on the 2023 Formula 1 calendar with some great on-track action. But it was also a farcical festival of chaos, with so many infringements and penalties that the stewards were still trying to decipher the final results several hours after the race finished. It made an absolute mockery of the sport. Surely fans and drivers should know their finishing position as soon as they cross the line. It was an embarrassment for the FIA. The problem hinged on an issue that has rumbled on in F1 for years: track limits. In theory, the rule is simple. The edge of the track is marked by a white line, and the drivers aren't allowed to go past it. Imagine the white line is a wall, and if all four wheels of your car go outside of it, you've hit the wall. Except it's not an actual wall because safety. Unless you're on a street circuit, then who cares about safety, right? However, this seemingly straightforward regulation has been anything but simple to enforce. Marshalling has been done mostly by eye through static cameras, with race stewards needing to check every possible infringement. This takes time, meaning rule breakers aren't immediately punished. And racing drivers being, well, racing drivers, means they think they've got away with it and push the limits even more, racking up even more infringements. 4 infringements means a 5-second time penalty, which increases to 10 for extra violations. In qualifying, a track limit violation means a cancelled lap time. There's also the fact that the Red Bull Ring in Austria is a particularly easy track at which to overstep the mark. Most of the track limits infringements were on the very high-speed corners at turns 9 and 10, where inadvertently drifting wide in search of the maximum possible pace is all too simple. Especially when previously the track didn't punish you for going wide. Last year, there were more than 1,200 potential track limits infringements during the Grand Prix that the FIA had to look at, an average of 60 per car in the 71-lap race. That's 14.06 per minute of the Grand Prix. The stewards were completely overwhelmed and drivers were being given penalties before they even knew they were heading off track because the stewards just couldn't keep up. Of the 20 drivers on the grid, only Fernando Alonso of Aston Martin and George Russell of Mercedes escaped some kind of track limit violation. Everyone else had a warning or at least one penalty. 7 time penalties were issued during the race, but that was not the end of it. As the cars crossed the line, the stewards had only just started going through the backlog of footage, checking for infringements. Aston Martin protested that people hadn't been punished as well, which added to the trouble. It took a whole 5 hours after the race was finished for the final result to be confirmed. Some of those Verstappen fans could have driven halfway home to Holland by then. 14 of the 20 drivers had their position changed in the final results compared to the place they crossed the line in. This clearly couldn't be allowed to happen again, and the FIA demanded changes to the track before they'd even finished the track limits review last season. So, new gravel traps have been installed in a bid to prevent a repeat of the farcical conclusion to last year's race. The operators of the Red Bull Ring have added a 2.5-meter wide gravel trap to the outside edges of turns 9 and 10 within the last 2 weeks. A similar gravel trap was added to the final corner at the Shanghai International Circuit for this year's Chinese Grand Prix. The traps at the Red Bull Ring will mean that anyone who strays wide on the exit of turns 9 and 10 will be severely punished for doing so. In addition to the gravel traps, F1's new AI track limits tool will be deployed. Known as computer vision, the idea is that this will be used to analyze pixels on a video feed to better judge when cars have breached track limits. The use of the AI system should mean fewer track limit incidents have to be processed by the FIA's Remote Operations Center, which should result in far less time being taken between a breach being reported and it being ruled on. Hopefully, the combination of the gravel traps and the new track limits AI will keep the drivers within the white lines in Austria and avoid a repeat of last season. So, what else is changing at the Red Bull Ring for this year? Well, that famous orange smoke that engulfs the circuit over the weekend, that is gone. The event has regularly seen the Oranje lighting orange flares in the grandstands, which famously led to alarming scenes of smoke drifting over the track on the formation lap in 2022. However, any flares that are let off this weekend will be in direct violation of the event's terms of entry, as the FIA changed its international sporting code late last year to prohibit the unauthorized possession and use of pyrotechnics, which flares are, at FIA competitions. So, sadly for the atmosphere, the orange smoke will be gone, but considering the dangers involved, it is probably for the best. The other big change for this season is the state of the championship. This time last year, Verstappen was on a 4-race win streak, having only lost twice during the season, both times to teammate Sergio Perez. Also, Aston Martin, after their big Canada upgrade, were seen as Red Bull's biggest rivals. How times have changed. This season, Max has won 7 of the opening 10 races, but looks nowhere near as comfortable as he did last season. In 2023, he had time to take a pit stop with 2 laps of the race left to put in a fastest lap for the bonus point. He ended up finishing 5 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc, but without the stop, it would have been a far bigger gap. This year, though, things are very different. Aston Martin have somehow managed to fall back behind Alpine and into the waiting clutches of VCARB, assuming the Red Bull second team can get their car working this weekend. In Aston's place, McLaren have stepped up to take a shot at Verstappen. For the last 2 Grand Prix Sundays, Lando Norris has gone to bed with that frustrated feeling that he had a potential race victory slip out of his grasp. In Canada, he lost out on an opportunity to pit under a safety car on the same lap as his rivals behind, which ensured that Verstappen emerged ahead of him. Then in Spain, he beat the world champion to pole position, but could not hold on to the lead on the long run to turn 1, eventually finishing second after a race-long strategy battle. McLaren clearly have a car capable of going toe-to-toe with Red Bull at this stage of the season, with Norris admitting that his team probably had the quickest package last weekend. He wants to start capitalizing on that performance by winning races, and there is perhaps no better venue for that than the Red Bull Ring, one that Norris has always been strong around. It's been one of my best tracks in terms of my own competitiveness and my most successful tracks, Norris said at the Austrian track after Sunday's race. Every weekend we go into now, the car's performing extremely well. We're always there or thereabouts within a couple of tenths of pole, and that's all we can ask for. It's an incredible achievement for McLaren to have gotten this close to Red Bull in terms of car performance. Last season, they were well off the pace to begin with, but closed the gap to the front a little as it progressed. This season, they started in a similar way, requiring upgrades to be anywhere near a podium finish, never mind challenging Max for race wins. Now though, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz reckon McLaren has the best package in Formula 1 and is not suffering fluctuations that even Red Bull is enduring. I think, honestly, the most consistent car right now is a McLaren, explained Sainz, whose team missed out on a podium finish in Barcelona. I think Red Bull are struggling in certain tracks, same as us. McLaren is quick everywhere, so I just don't see McLaren having any weakness right now. For me, Red Bull is still up there, but McLaren is quick everywhere, which is quite impressive. A second race win this weekend for Lando Norris would lay down the gauntlet to the rest of the grid and be a real statement of intent for the second half of the season. Turning over Verstappen's 69-point lead in the Drivers' Championship will not be easy, and no one's going to call it possible until that gap actually starts to come down. But if Norris can win in Austria, then some might start to believe. What do you think of the track changes to the Red Bull Ring? Are you going to miss the orange flares? And can Lando Norris take a win in Austria? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.